What's up, guys? I'm Chris Reynolds, Charlotte 49er all-time leading passer and professional quarterback. I'm calling all quarterbacks to take their game to the next level, not only physically, but mentally. With 50 career starts and thousands of snaps under my belt, I've experienced many of the do's and don'ts of this game. Join me for a one-on-one quarterback session to improve your biomechanics that allows us to throw with more velocity, accuracy, and efficiency. Have a better understanding of defensive scheme and strategy, and create more efficient footwork. Or join me on Sundays at New Age Athlete from 10 to 11 for a Sunday group recovery and polish to recharge the batteries for a new week. When it comes to film study, I offer in-season, one-on-one, Zoom, or in-person sessions to have a better understanding of how opponents try to attack us and to evaluate your play so we can improve for the following week. All options are on my Calendly link, calendly.com/Chris Reynolds QB, or you can find more information on my Instagram page at Chris Reynolds QB Training. I have a deep passion for this game, and I'm excited to take everything that I learned to take the younger QBs to another level. As always, roll Niners.
Welcome back to the Highway 49 podcast. We are back with episode 86 of the show, and we're here to talk about Charlotte's tough loss at Navy this past week, give you guys an update on the quarterback battle, talk a little bit about a trip to Memphis this weekend, and what this team needs to do to get to a bowl game. But as always, before we dive in, we're going to hit the best thing we've seen this week. Jeremy, what's up, man? Talk to us.
Got the hat on. I never wear hats.
Yeah,
Never wear
this is
hats, but I
crazy.
got the Yankees hat
Why?
on. Thank you. Got the Yankees hat on. Great series. Shout out to the Cleveland Guardians, but it's been such a long drought. 2009. I was born in the Bronx. I grew up in North Carolina, but that's where I was born. My family moved there, straight from Jamaica. So good to see the Yankees in the World Series versus the other heavyweight in the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm gonna be nervous, but we'll see what happens. Go Yanks. That's the best thing I've seen this week. Hunter, how about you?
Yeah, man. A couple things. First, NBA is back. Uh, Tip-off was last night. Good to see some hoops again. The second is another NBA related thing. Wrote my first Hornet story in the Observer. It's on Trey Mann. Got to talk to him earlier this week. That was really, really cool. Good story. And he's actually got a case for Sixth Man of the Year. So follow along with that. And yeah, Hannah, tell us your best thing you've seen.
I came prepared today. I have two. But first, I've been covering Charlotte women's soccer, and I got to talk about Sydney Smith's goal against Tulsa. They won on the road, but she had a 50-yard goal, like straight into the goal. It was super cool. She made it on SportsCenter top 10. So really, really cool. Excited for her. Just excited for, a graduate student to have that moment. They have a game on Thursday. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. So Niner Nation, come support. But also the Bama and Tennessee game was just it was so fun to watch. And I had to laugh because I was like, are they gonna actually like try to pull up the goalposts again? And it was so funny seeing the security guards. Like, I saw a video on Twitter of someone just being like, just let them take the goalpost, just let them take it. But it was just such a great game, a great day of college football. So really exciting. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great day of college football for Charlotte, with the 17-51 loss against Navy. Guys, that game it was rough. It was a rough one to watch. It was a rough one to look back at the stats. I mean, obviously, Max Brown getting the start since the second game of the season. So he's been out for a long time. He looked like he was a little rusty out there. That's exactly what I thought. And coach said that yesterday, that he felt like his confidence had been shot. And that's exactly what it looked like. He went 7 for 18 with 152 yards and 3 interceptions. And then Trexler Ivy has an interception. Hassan Wilson had a fumble that resulted in a Navy field goal. And it just, in all three phases, Navy just ran over them.
Yep.
Really. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, ball security was not there. Uh, there was just a lot of mistakes, and there was no fast start, which coach emphasized yesterday that he wants to have more of. And it was a tough one to watch. I mean, the location was beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
The
I
sunset over
mean,
the stadium. I was like, man.
yeah,
Don't do that, guys. That's Florida State territory. When you have to start saying, "Oh, well, the jerseys look clean though." Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I
don't
don't,
do that. Don't do that.
I don't know. I mean, interesting enough, I looked at some of the stats, and Charlotte did have more first downs than Navy, but I don't know. It was rough. I want to kind of open it up to you guys, and what were your thoughts about it? You know, anything that you saw that stuck out to you? Just what were your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, the first line in the story I wrote was if you wanted basically a blueprint of how to start the game as terrible as possible, Charlotte put it on TV on Saturday. And that's not word for word. It was definitely a little better than that. But the start was not. So they go 4 plays, 13-yard punt, which Michael O'Shaughnessy had a 3-yard punt to open the season. Had been playing a lot better after that. Even won special teams player in the week after a 73-yard punt against Gardner Webb. But he kind of reverted back to that Saturday, like I say, 13-yard punt. And let me back up. Navy scores the first play of the game. You could kind of tell what was about to happen. And preparing for the triple option is tough. It's no joke, but Charlotte did have an extra week to do it. And I think part of the struggles here is being able to simulate the speed when you have a fifth or sixth string quarterback trying to imitate Blake Horvath, who has a chance to be a Heisman candidate. You're not going to get a good feel for how fast that option's coming. And that's exactly what happened. First play of the game, 26-yard run. Alex Tecco, who ends up turning in a hat trick in this game. And then 3 plays later, they're in the end zone. And then after that, it was kind of like, all right, let's see what Charlotte can do. They didn't score in this game last year. And the first, I'd say 20 minutes of this game were reminiscent of that. They go punt, then Max Brown's first recorded pass of the game. He did have a pass on that opening drive. It was defensive PI, so it doesn't count as an actual pass in the record books. But his first recorded pass is directly to a Navy linebacker. Navy's in the red zone. They score a couple plays later. Charlotte gets the ball back. Hassan Wilson fumble, just as Hannah talked about. A couple plays later, it's 21-0. Very next drive, Max Brown, another interception. We're talking four turnovers and 11 plays. You can't beat really anyone like that. It doesn't matter who it is. If you spot a team 31 points off the rip, which they did, Navy scored touchdown, 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 field goal, touchdown. It's going to be tough. And to go back and forth at quarterback, which they did, Biff talked a little bit about sitting Max down just to let him take a minute. Because when you start a game, first game back, a couple straight picks, but even Trexler was a disaster when he was in. He throws a pick six to make it 38-0. And at that point, you're just playing for pride. You're playing to at least get on the scoreboard. It was tough. Jeremy, I'm curious to your thoughts, especially on the quarterback back and forth, because we're going to dive into all that later on.
Yeah, I mean, college football is just so weird because I guess the NFL too, football in general, there's what, 12 games in the season,
Yeah.
not an 82 game season, not a 160 game season. So like every week when something happens, it's like the sky is falling, right? They beat ECU. Everyone's like, holy shit, this team is gonna sorry, oh man, this team is gonna win like the college football championship, right? Like, whoa, that's the best football I've ever seen by
Well,
anyone play.
you live and die every week. You're exactly
Exactly.
right. Yeah.
So you see this result and you're like, oh my gosh. But I mean, first tip the cap to Navy, what
Yeah.
they're doing over there, Army as well, because they put the beat down on ECU. But like you guys said, it's kind of weird. And Hunter, you've talked about this, how the first what 5, 6 games of the season you predicted correctly.
Not
And
close on
then
this one.
not close on this one, but we talked about this where there was a part of the schedule that you were 1-3, you had to try and come out of it 500, you did. And now we've phased into the part of the schedule that becomes really hard. And
Yeah.
Hunter, you and I talked about this, Hannah as well, actually, where it's like if you want to get to six, one of these three games, you
Gotta
gotta win.
win.
I
Yep.
don't know how it's gonna happen. I don't know what the deal is, but if you realistically want to have that bowl game, it's got to be one of these wins. And it is not funny, but when you have the bye week after, ECU or whatever, you come back and you kind of need to get pushed back down to earth, right? You put 55 up on your rival who has been big timing you forever. You go to Navy, an established program with established history, and you kind of get beat down a little bit. And now that's when they're like, okay, guys, we got our ass whooped. How do we come back from this? How do we, rebound from this and hopefully steal a win the next two games? Because if you want to get to that number six, it's got to happen.
And that's part of it with this game. So we talked about some of the turnovers early. Charlotte had a couple of like glimpses in the game. I mean, one of the wildest stats of the year entering Saturday's game, Navy was 18 of 18 in the red zone. And that's not just converting for points, that's touchdowns every single time, which is crazy. One of the few programs in the country to have that. Charlotte did force a field goal. It didn't really matter in the game, but that is, I guess, a plus on that front. And there were a couple plays, and I talked about this with Wes and Walker on the radio yesterday. I thought Max Brown's game was sort of reminiscent to how he played against JMU. A ton of turnovers. I mean, 3 turnovers in that game, 3 in this game. He had a couple glimpses where he throw a touchdown. He hit Omega Blake on one. He hit Dwayne Thomas Jr. on another. That was Dwayne Thomas's first career touchdown. And then he'd come back on the very next possession and throw an interception. And I think it was kind of, I would say this game was encapsulated by his third and final pick, which goes to Deshaun Peel, Navy DB, for his second pick six of the day, this time trucking Max Brown into the end zone. That's just the overall game. Navy was clear, far and away the most prepared team. And when you look at 51 points on the board, it's easy to say, oh, the defense was horrible. But then when you think about points off turnovers, 14 points of this game were scored with the defense on the sideline, 2 pick sixes. Navy's average start was on their own 44-yard line. So Biff Poggi, after the game, talked about Charlotte outgained Navy. Charlotte had more passing yards, more rushing yards. Well, the reason for that is Navy was starting at midfield every single possession if they even had the ball. Charlotte had, I think, 2 more possessions than Navy because of those pick sixes. So it's, if you want to play the yardage game, there's really no way to do that. I mean, in the second half, Charlotte did slow down Navy's offense some. They went punt, 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 touchdown, 3 more punts after that. But at that point, the damage is done. And Horvath, their starting quarterback, didn't play most of that fourth quarter. So this was a game where you look at, and we talked to him about it yesterday, how hard or how easy is it to flush this game? How can you put this behind you and keep it moving? Because you do have to go to Memphis this Saturday. And we all remember the game at home against Memphis last year. It was like Hassan Wilson's breakout game. Chuck Sarivi throws 4 picks and they're still somehow in the game. Like it was an insane football game, and Charlotte's going to need that kind of magic on the road this weekend for sure.
Yeah, Jordan said in the presser when someone asked him about how quick can you flush it, he said, trying to think where did I put it here. Yeah, he said never want it to happen again. It's not easy to take these types of things. And he also said how like it's a new group, right? Because there's so many returning faces, but we can't use that excuse anymore. I'm sorry. This is college football in the NIL landscape where every year is going to be a new team. You don't have continuity. Those days are over. I was on 7:30 yesterday on the radio talking about how, the Max Brown, Deshaun Purdy Trexler conversations and the macro versus micro that we've touched on numerous times on here, where they're like, I've never seen a team cycle between 3 quarterbacks like this. And it's like, well, you never seen college football do anything that's been happening in the past 5 years, right?
Yeah.
There is no commitment anymore. Everything is a 1 year deal. Everything is a what have you done for me lately league at this point. And I don't know, man, because the way Biff said it in that quote, I can say exactly where he said, the guy who has the best week practicing is going to be the starter. Whoever is moving the football will, take that spot, and we're going to treat this position like offensive tackle. Um, it's weird because, like I said, week to week, we thought Deshaun Purdy and Max Brown was going to be like Colin Kaepernick and Alex Smith back in the day, right? Where you're like, oh, you got two starters and you don't either or, you know, it doesn't matter. But now you have the controversy right back. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more than just a QB thing, but yeah, it's a big part of it too.
And looking at Max's game Saturday, I mean, the three interceptions are glaring. Two touchdowns are a positive if you look at it that way. He did have five turnover worthy plays. And guys, I gotta say this, Charlotte's offensive line is holding up. He's got time. Like the pass blocking grades are all great. Kendall Stanley is leading this group. And Walker said it to me yesterday on WFNZ. They have the 38th ranked offensive line in the league or in the country as far as pass blocking. And it's been good enough to stand in the pocket and scramble when the time comes. And that is one thing Max showed yesterday was the scrambling element that we really haven't seen in this offense. And that is a question for Deshaun Purdy. Like, is he going to be healthy enough? He was dealing with a sprained ankle and then a knee issue. So you could tell he was a little bit hobbled trying to get out of the pocket. But if that's something that he can do, is that an element that's going to continue with him at the helm? Because guys, Max was able to push the ball down the field. I mean, he was 3 of 7 down the field. One of his interceptions came 20 yards down the field. That was the pick six we talked about. But if you can't take care of the ball, you're not going to last with Biff Boju. We saw the leash last year. I mean, it was like if Trexler took a bad sack, you're out. Jalen Jones is in the game. If Jalen misses a wide open guy, you're out. Trexler's in the game. I don't think this is how this needs to be. I know I came on here last week and said maybe play both, but when you're having performances like this, like it's hard to say Max can't work through this. And we're going to talk a little bit about NIL, but he's going to get every opportunity to work through this because they paid this man. And we talk about 1 year deals, you talk about all this different stuff. They're going to have to pick a quarterback. And if Deshaun Purdy, the update on him, he's back at practice this week. He has a thumb break similar to Max. It's just a little bit different, slightly less recovery time, and it's in his non-throwing hand. So while Max is recovering, trying to grip the football in his throwing hand, this is in Deshaun's non-throwing hand, his left hand. So what he's struggling with that is catching snaps, handoffs, anything. I mean, football is a two-handed game. If you're just going to try and use your throwing hand, you're screwed. And so his recovery, I think, has gone well. He's, like I say, he's back at practice working in the team sessions. But Biff announced yesterday Max will start Saturday. Hannah, we talked about this back and forth, but do you think we're at a point now where we know Deshaun is the quarterback of this team moving forward, or do you think there is still kind of a back and forth?
Well, I definitely feel like there's going to be a back and forth. There's no question about that. I mean, you paid Max Brown all this money to come and be the starting quarterback. He was supposed to be the guy to lead this team to success and greatness. And, you know, the new franchise quarterback for Charlotte. Unfortunately, he got injured. So we haven't really been able to see him at his best, I think. I mean, we saw glimpses in the game against JMU, but we really haven't seen him do as much as we've seen Deshaun Purdy. And at this point, with just the way that college football is and with NIL, I mean, other people have seen what Deshaun Purdy can do. So I think at this point, you utilize him right now. I mean, he is your best bet at this point in the season. If you're looking for those 6 wins to get to a bowl game, which is what you're hopefully striving for, and I just think he is the best person for that job. I mean, he's shown that he can do it. Obviously, he's dealing with some injuries and still recovering. But I think why you have him at this point, because you never know if someone else, comes along and says, "Hey, we've seen your game. Like, we're gonna offer you this amount of money to come play at our school." He's here right now. Capitalize on him right now and just ride with what you got is kind of how I feel like it should be. What you got, Jimmy?
Yeah, oh, you didn't have to stop. I didn't want to like
Oh,
interject,
I thought you
but
got.
I was just waiting. Steve Clifford-esque kind of presser we got from Biff on Tuesday.
Very
Just
blunt.
being very blunt, not, cutting any corners.
There was some interesting back and forth with Mike Hill in the room about the schedule too. We have the toughest schedule in the country. It's coaches don't want to come here. They want to know if you can get to a bowl game. I think he was trying to say a couple things there.
And the schedule gets a lot tougher next year. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You said you want to touch on NIL later. I kind of want to just hit on this quickly now, where remember we had Fern on and he was talking about, well, maybe the future of college is having contractual agreements like, hey, we're getting this player for 2, 3 years, they're getting paid this amount of money. This is, and I'm not egging on anybody, relax, you know,
Yeah.
get your panties out of a wad here. But money's involved now, so these conversations naturally have to happen. This is the downside of having the 2, 3 year deals for college athletes, right? Because let's say you give Max the 2, 3 years, and then this happens. He gets an injury. He's not playing well. He has like 6 interceptions, 5 interceptions. And now you're looking like, oh, well, this kind of affects how we want to construct a roster now. Now you have all these questions that start popping up because you have long-term deals or a longer than 1 year deal. So with Purdy, I mean, at this point, yeah. I guess I'm on that side. Start Purdy when he can,
Yeah.
but what does that mean for Max? It's basically saying,
Right.
"Hey, we're okay if you leave next year." These are like really tough conversations to have and have it through the year. It feels like we shouldn't be, but we should be.
And that's the thing too, is like I don't want to write Max Brown off and be like, okay,
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
he's cooked, because that's not how I feel about the situation. He played really well against Chapel Hill in the first half of that game, 8 of 12, buck 75, made some great throws, suffers an injury, misses a month, and this is his first game back against a top 25 team on the
Yeah.
road. I mean, like, I'm not going to act like you don't expect someone like that to take their lumps. And it's not like he'd had a ton of collegiate experience playing. I mean,
But
Right.
in a year, but that's the thing with the presser where in a year where you have to get to six and Biff is just being blunt, like I don't, truthfully, I don't know if they'll be 3-3 next year. That
yeah.
schedule
Oh, that's
is
brutal.
that
Yeah.
schedule is brutal. You
Yeah.
have an opportunity to have a bowl game. So
Yeah.
all the emotions, all the egos have to be put aside, and you're just thinking, how do we get to that number? And in the future, how do we try and get to that number six? I agree with you. I don't think Max is written off at all. He's been put in a really tough scenario, but a lot of people have been put in really tough scenarios, and that's kind of the name of the game now.
Well, it's college football, man. It's like, I mean, what do we know about Biff Poggi in the small sample sizes? He's going to go with the hot hand at quarterback. He showed that last year, and the hand was rarely ever hot. So it was kind of like, what do we do? This year, I think you have a couple good options. I don't think, let me rephrase this. I think Truxler is the reliever. Like if you need him in a pinch to make a few plays for you, he can do that. And he's shown that. But he's not necessarily going to lead you to that 6 win mark. Purdy hasn't had a game yet where you're like a monster stat line, like that ECU game. I mean, they scored 6 rushing touchdowns. He put him in position to score those touchdowns. He ran one of his own, but it wasn't like he was 25 of 30 for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. It wasn't like a monster day, but it was a good game management, put them in position to win the game, and he did what he needed to do. The run game got going. He was extending plays. He was putting the ball on target and on time. That's what you need in this offense. And we talked about yesterday at the presser, or Biff talked about it, but we've continuously talked about it starting fast. If this team is going to be a run first team, you can't be down 10, 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. You can't turn the ball over X amount of times and expect to get the ground game going, because those things start to compound. It's much tougher for Mike Miller to say, you know what, let's settle for a 3.5 yard run on this play with Cartavius to eventually set up a 12 or 12 yard run. That's not what you need when you're trailing like that. They have to find ways to punch first. And I think this game at Memphis Saturday is going to be huge.
And when stuff like that happens, then you get in a funk and you go away from what you you go away from your identity. We can
Yeah.
number of NFL teams, the Ravens, right? The Titans with these really good running games, both with Derrick Henry in the past few years, where it's like when the Titans are up 10 on you in the
Oh,
third quarter, the
you're,
game's over,
you're cooked.
right? When the
Yeah.
Ravens are up on you and they got the running game going, they got the QB read with the running back, whether that was Damn, I can't remember.
Dobbins.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, whether you got those guys, and once it starts going with the lead, wave goodbye. It's over. Wave the white flag. But on the flip side, if the Titans are down 10 and you're trying to hand it off, sorry, trash man outside, and you're trying to hand it off, Derrick Henry isn't that value's not there anymore when you're not trying to, when the clock is against you. So like you said, I mean, it's got to come out to fast starts. It's
Mhm.
crazy how Hassan has like almost a career day against ECU, and then Biff in the presser yesterday said he fumbles too much. Got to work on that. It's just again week to week, and that is encouraging for me though because if it's week to week, it can go from really good ECU to really bad Navy and back to really good. So now it's just what do you do during this week of practice, and how can you get ready for Memphis?
Mhm. I think it also comes back to, though, but what's the identity of this team? If we're going week to week, what really is the identity? I mean, I guess at this point, it's all about just being a winning team week by week. Um, I mean, you talk about Hassan Wilson. I mean, to me, I feel like he's improved drastically. I mean,
That's his first career fumble, by the way.
yeah, I personally the last game last year against Memphis was like his, like you said, Hunter, his welcome to Charlotte moment. No one really knew who he was until that game, in my personal opinion. I mean, yes, he was on the team and we knew his name, but we didn't know his game. Um, so I've been really impressed. I mean, the running back room, we've said this time and time again, is really deep. And so is the receiver room this year. I mean, they have all the elements, but unfortunately, it's college football. It's hard to win week to week. And also, it doesn't matter who you are, what team you play, and it doesn't matter if you're injured. It doesn't, no one's going to really give you the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's at the end of the day, it's about how well you perform. And if you don't perform well, then okay, suck it up. We're not going to baby you. We're not going to pat you on the back for it. Let's just move on. So.
I I just thought of this. There's probably some ECU haters who are listening to this podcast and relishing and reveling in how this pod is sounding right now. Like, oh well, the Navy's a good team, and you got to bounce back, and they're like, yes, this is like what I'm feeding on right now. But Hannah, you talked about identity. It's hard to have an identity when you have three QBs and you don't know who's going to be in the game.
Exactly.
We
You talk about the running game, that's the constant, but I mean, QB is an important position. I don't know when you want to get to the Memphis preview, Hunter, but like that kind of flows in if you want to get one thing in before. No?
let it fly, man.
All right. And you're right. That was Hassan's only fumble, but Biff said in Tuesday's presser, Hassan, you're a good back. You can't be running back if you have a fumbling issue. Um, just adding that in there. All right, Memphis. I touched on the QBs because of this. They don't have a QB problem. Their
No.
QB is Seth Hannigan. He's a senior, 65% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the year. And it's always weird going to other team stats and realizing when you go to the QB position, it's like, oh, wait, no, it's not three guys who all have over 40, 50 passing attempts. This guy has like 176, and the next person has one. The next person has one. The other two QBs have thrown a combined two passes. So they have their guy in Seth Hannigan. They're on a 3-game winning streak going into this game, 24-7 over Middle Tennessee, 21-3 over South Florida, 52-44 over North Texas. And their last loss was coincidentally against the Navy Midshipmen, 56-44. Um,
Navy's freaking good, dude.
yeah,
Like,
they're the real deal. It's funny because like they added like an extra dimension to the triple option, so it just makes them that much harder to defend. But Memphis has 5 players with at least 20 receptions for receivers.
yeah.
To compare that, Charlotte has one, Sean Brown, and it's at 21, I believe. These guys have a lot of weapons. They like to put up points. As you can see, some of these numbers 52 against UNT, 44, 24. Like these guys can put up numbers. So at a certain point, it's going to come down to starting fast. Is it going to be a shootout? Is it going to be, hey, we're going to stop you from what you do best and kind of make you play our way of football, which is slower? I'm really interested to see what happens. But what strengths and weaknesses do you think could play into Charlotte's hands, Hunter, and then Hannah?
I think the weakness is the middle of the field. It has been most of the season for Charlotte. I've given some stats on here. One pro really fast is Aquarius Conley made his debut for Charlotte last week. He much or long awaited, however you want to say it. That kid deserved to be on the field, so I'm happy for him. He played 23 snaps last week. I think he's going to play a lot in the nickel this week. That's where I'd expect to see him with Travion McGee and Ali still at safety. But Seth Hennigan is going to attack the middle of the field. 44% of this dude's throws are between the numbers 9 yards or less. So he's going to attack Reed Williford. He's going to attack where Prince Bima would be. He wasn't at practice yesterday. I don't expect to see him Saturday. So that's going to be Cam Burden. That's going to be Aiden Kaler, guys like that. I would say 70% of his throws altogether are between the numbers, attacking the middle of the field. Most of them are in that short to intermediate range, though. And you're right, Jeremy. They've got 4 or 5 different guys at wideout and tight end that can get it done. And I think if Charlotte's gonna, this is another game. If the pass rush can't get home, Charlotte doesn't stand a chance in my mind. They're gonna have to get the run game going. They're gonna have to stay in the game early, use some creativity. Mike Miller pulled out a couple trick plays against Navy. He's got more in his bag. You need to see more of that. You need to see big swing plays in the game. I tweeted out before the Navy game, Williford and Bima would have to play great. Williford led the team in tackles. He does all season. And they'd have to get big plays in special teams. Henry Rutledge had like an 80-yard return, I would say early in the game, but it's late in the second quarter, which is still early in the game. But at that point, you're down 38-0. It really doesn't matter. They need plays like that. They're going to have plays like that to win these big games. And yeah, I think attacking the middle of the field is my biggest concern for Charlotte. We've seen Ryan Osborne's defense step up at big times, big moments this year. We've also seen him get gashed down the field, chunk plays. So whichever version of that defense shows up, you got to hope it's a good one to pull out this win.
Yeah, I definitely think that there needs to be some trick plays. I mean, we talked about coming out to a fast start. That's crucial, I think. I mean, the last time that Charlotte played Memphis, they didn't show up to the second quarter. So I think it's about trying to find ways to set Memphis off of their rhythm, kind of surprise them a little bit. I mean, they're a really sound team. I mean, they have that leadership at the quarterback position. They trust him. He is a pro and knows what he's doing. So setting him off his rhythm is going to be a little tricky. That's where the defense really needs to lock in and do their job, as coach would say. I mean, but the big thing for me and the weakness that we've seen is just not turning the ball over, ball security. We've talked about it, but it all comes down to the fundamentals, I think, for this team. I've seen glimpses of them doing that and looking like a really good football team. But last week was an example of just not being sharp and not doing basic football things, in all 3 phases of the game. I mean, don't turn the ball over in the first series, get 3 and out on defense, tackle the guy in front of you who has the ball. Like, it comes down to playing clean football in all 3 phases. And I think that's exactly what this team needs. So no slip
So
up.
yeah, for I guess for Hunter, like, what does that actually mean when you hear Biff always say like we got to get out to a fast start, and Hannah as well? Does that mean Mike Miller should be like, all right, first play of the game, we want to get 4 yards, second and 6. Now we want to get down to third and 3. Now we want to have a third and short, first down, move the sticks, keep the chains going, get everybody warmed up? Or are you saying fast start? Let's do that trick play early like ECU tried to do, catch Charlotte on their heels, try to go for a touchdown out the gate. What are you looking for in that fast start other than turning the ball over? Because you gotta like we see with Kyle Shanahan, his first 20 plays, right? He's like, I'm scripting these. I know exactly
Yeah.
how we're coming out the game. What should Charlotte be trying to do in this game? And how should they attack that fast start?
So Charlotte has tried trick plays on the opening play of the game twice this year, and they didn't work neither time. So I think you kind of take that as a sign and take that 4 yard run on first down. Take that quick pass to Sean Brown, that curl, get a few yards, get the game going. Then you're going to open up those shots, whatever it is that they've got planned. But the thing about Max Brown and or Deshaun Purdy, both of those guys specialize in my mind in pushing the ball down the field. You can take those shots. You've got Jairus Mack on the perimeter. You've got Omega Blake, who's been killing lately. I mean, I think he's outside of the ECU game, He's just had multiple scoring games in a row. A couple touchdowns at Rice, buck 53 there, scored against Navy, had a couple big catches against ECU. He's the hot hand at receiver. And I look for someone like Zay Myers in this game. He's flashed a couple times, scoring against JMU and Indiana. I think he'll have a good game. I think Charlotte's got to spread the field in this one. With with Memphis, they have good linebackers. Poggi talked about it yesterday. And I think Memphis's offense is going to score points. I'd say you could look between 30 and 40 points to come from Memphis's offense. I mean, Hennigan has been sacked. I talked about the pressure. He's been sacked 8 times all year. And those are on play. 7 of those 8 sacks are when the opposite team doesn't blitz. So if Charlotte can't get home, like it's over in my mind. Like they're going to have to rattle him with 4 because he's going to slice them up if they send those extra people. Because you're right, Hannah, he is a pro. When you think about a senior at a program like Memphis, you know that NIL bag is talking because this dude's been playing good every year. I mean, he's been a problem since before Charlotte got in the AAC. So yeah, that's in my mind. Take the short plays early, get some confidence, especially if it's Max. You're gonna have to build some confidence with him, and we've seen the struggles there. You need him to feel like he can have that kind of quick trigger release because that's what Biff talked about after Navy. It's like he was hesitant just for that second, like scared to make a mistake. Because guys, I mean, think about the pressure that's on this kid, right? You did give him all that money. You did bring him from Florida. He is that big SEC transfer that Biff Poggi is saying is a Ferrari. Like there's a lot of pressure in that moment, and he's got to step up to the plate this week.
Well, think about the pressure that he also feels knowing that he has a guy that can
Yeah.
throw just as well as he can. So, I mean, you talk about that healthy competition. I mean, I'm sure they're great supporters of one another, which is awesome. But at the same time, you're always like, it always could be that next man up. Like I have this guy behind me, so I have to produce. So I can't even imagine, that type of pressure as well. But I don't think it's about explosive plays for a fast start. I think it's about sustaining drives and, getting those short yards in order to be able to convert on third down and just sustaining drives to drive down the field. I mean, Charlotte does best when they score first, so they have that momentum to keep on going. So
No doubt. I couldn't agree more there. When you look at the schedule, they've got 5 left. They've got to win 3 of them. You're at Memphis, home for Tulane, which is a monstrous game, and then home South Florida off a bye week, and then you end the season at FAU, home with UAB. So if they're gonna get it done, it starts now. But guys, before we wrap, we gotta let Jeremy cook for a minute. What's up, man?
Yeah, quickly too. Scott Hansen saying like this is the witching hour for like the what 3 o'clock when the games are wrapping up. That's how I feel with the college football season soon. Like this is the witching hour. These next few weeks are going to determine who gets a bowl game, who's outside of the circle, who misses the college football playoffs. All these games are going to be massive going forward, so I can't wait to watch them all. Talking about games, WNBA finals just wrapped up. Um, the Lynx. I mean, talk about a heist.
Yeah, that was
Talk about a
brutal.
heist. Um, I don't know if you guys have watched Heat, but you should watch Heat. Very good movie. With that being said, Nafisha Collier is amazing. She was getting hacked all the time. The Lynx players were somehow putting up with all the discrepancies in the referee and how they called games. Shout out to the Liberty, but I don't know, man. At a certain point, you gotta start thinking this can't be you can't justify what was happening in that finals game. I don't know if you watched the end of it, Hunter,
Yeah,
but
crazy.
the Stewie travel
5 steps. 5 steps.
into a foul, yeah,
Yeah.
that forced overtime. I mean, I never want to be the guy screaming refs, but that was tough. Either way, WNBA is in a great place right now. I think they want to restructure the CBA agreement, but it is cool seeing smaller programs and smaller leagues in general getting that airtime, getting that opportunity to be bigger on the map. So shout out to the WNBA.
do you see how quick Nike was with that commercial too?
Nike's ready. That's a good point, Hannah. Thank you for tossing that lob
Yeah.
to me. There are some teams, there are some like brands that aren't like on their shit when it comes to
Under
marketing their
Armour.
athletes. Under Armour, yeah, with
Yeah.
Stephen Curry. Like,
So
what's
it's
going on there?
criminal, bro.
On the same spectrum, the Anthony Edwards commercial yesterday was amazing where he put it up to a lie
Oh,
detector test and it's like, oh, was the Celtics like route to a ring easy? He was like, nah, man, the East ain't weak and the thing's going off. I mean, that's that real.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys gotta watch the video to see my emotion for that. But yeah, I'm just sports are back, man. NBA, NFL, college football, everything's going. So
Best time of the year.
right, best time of the year. Don't want to talk about it with anyone other than you guys.
And college basketball is back too, just a
And
couple days from
CBD,
now.
you
And
gotta
that's
have
when,
Fern on one more time before season starts.
no doubt, they have a ton of televised games, nationally televised games all across the ESPN networks this year. So shout out Charlotte and shout out the American for that TV deal. That's a hell of a deal for Charlotte, and it's so beautiful not having to watch on CUSA TV anymore.
Talk that
Ah,
shit, Mike. Talk that shit,
remember
Mike.
those days?
All right, last thing I'm gonna wrap with this. I've made a couple promises this year about having on current Charlotte athletes, and I'm just gonna be real transparent with you guys. It's damn near impossible to get any of these people, and this is a direct shot at the media, what do you call sports information staff. Like y'all gotta look out, man. If you want media coverage of your school, if you want people to continue to care about your school, you have to be able to put those athletes in position to speak. This is the fifth and sixth request. We've had Biff Poggi request personally to come on this show. And has he been on the show? Not in a long time. It's frustrating, man. I'm tired of this shit for real.
Hey, man, surprises are fun.
Oh my
Who
God,
doesn't
dude.
like surprises?
We've got no idea who's going to be at the presser. How am I supposed to prep to interview these kids? And that's the biggest thing, man. It's so frustrating going from such a good staff in that retros and that like mindset. Tom Whitestone, I'm gonna shout him out again to what we're dealing with now because I go out there for the love of the game, football, for the players, dude. That's been the most fruitful thing of covering this team for the past 5 or 6 years is the players, the relationships, guys that you're watching in the pros on Sunday, guys that are playing in smaller leagues, guys that are working full-time jobs. Now, that's the fun part about this. So it's like when you don't have those interactions, when you don't have the time to build those relationships because of the way that these things are getting scheduled and not getting scheduled, it's not worth it on the same level, and it's frustrating because a school like Charlotte deserves that sort of media coverage. And I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but the media crowds are dwindling at Charlotte and the
Yeah.
team is better. Maybe think about why that's happening. It's crazy. But that's all I got. So appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening to my little rant there, and we'll be back soon.